This video introduces music from several countries in the Caribbean, including Haiti, Jamaica, Trinidad, Cuba, and the Dominican Republic. Roughly 7,000 islands are in the Caribbean, with 25 territories. While numerous pre-Columbian indigenous groups existed, colonialism either displaced or decimated most of these populations. The region is named after the Carib, an ethnic group still found here. Most of the population today is either of European or African descent, often with mixed ancestry that may include indigenous peoples. Many European nations laid claim to islands of the Caribbean. Thus, English, Spanish, French, and even Dutch are common languages depending on the particular location. Oftentimes, the European tongue is indigenized to create a unique dialect particular to that region. The slave trade brought many African populations to the Caribbean. Some islands were used as ports of entry before the slaves were transshipped to the United States. When the British abolished the slave trade throughout their possessions in 1843, many indentured workers were imported from India and China. While these other ethnic groups are important to the ethnic makeup of the region, most of the unique cultural creations, especially those associated with music, are the result of cross-cultural interaction between European and African traditions. Vodou is one of the most intriguing cultural traditions we will encounter. It is often poorly stereotyped in movies and literature, and is an important religious tradition found not only in Haiti, but throughout the Americas in various permutations. As with most areas in the Caribbean and South America, Haiti was originally colonized by the Spanish. The Spanish, however, usually just came for spoils and then left the region with either no or a minimal number of permanent settlers. The French claimed Haiti in 1697 and controlled the region for more than 100 years. The Haitian Revolution began in 1791 and is usually attributed to a Vodou, also known as voodoo, ceremony where a priest prophesied the downfall of French Napoleonic rule. By 1804, the French were driven out of and the island became the first independent nation in the Caribbean. Since then, however, Haiti has struggled to gain a footing in international affairs. U.S. intervention generally exacerbated political problems in the region, where dictatorships have mired the country in economic despair, encouraging a great number of refugees to flee to the United States and other countries. Let me play an example of music from a Vodou ritual. First impressions. The music of Vodou is purely African, derived from Dahomey and Yoruba drumming traditions in Nigeria. Distinguishing it from the West African polyrhythmic percussion ensembles is difficult without a contextual association. Aural analysis. Polyrhythms organize the instrumental music, while call and response is the basis of the vocal performance. The three rada drums are the heart of the ensemble, as the rhythms performed on these instruments are considered to invite the spirits to participate. Our example includes two excerpts, the second of which does not include the rada drums. Rather, a set of bamboo trumpets, known as vaccine, are used in an interlocking polyrhythmic structure to substitute for the drums. This type of performance is more typical of parade performances because the drums are difficult to carry. Vodou is but one of many African-derived animistic traditions found in the Western Hemisphere. It is primarily associated with French-speaking areas such as Haiti and New Orleans in the United States. Santeria is best known of such traditions associated with Spanish-speaking populations and is found primarily in Cuba and the United States, especially Florida and New York City. Candomblé is found primarily in Brazil and is associated with Portuguese-speaking populations, while Shango is associated with Trinidad and Tobago. Each religion is based on the personification of natural elements into animistic deities. In the Vodou tradition, these deities are known as Loa. In Santeria and several other traditions, they are known as Orisha. Some of the better-known Orisha are Shango, the god of thunder and lightning, and Ogun, the god of fire, iron, and war, as well as Legba, the guardian of the crossroads between the spiritual and material planes of existence. While all of these traditions are strongly rooted in the African traditions of the Yoruba and/or Dahomey populations of Nigeria, Benin, and the surrounding regions, European Roman Catholicism is syncretized with each to a greater or lesser degree. Vodou has minimal overt Christian connections in contrast to Santeria, which has numerous Roman Catholic references. John the Baptist, for example, is often equated with Shango. A common ritual practice that occurs in these ceremonies is spirit possession. A deity is invited to participate in a ceremony honoring him or her by possessing an individual. Such persons are referred to as the horses that the spirit then rides to demonstrate their presence to worshippers. Some of the more fantastic behaviors are when such horses walk on fire, eat red-hot live coals, or chew on glass without being injured, presumably under the protection of the deity. Haitian pop music is some of my favorite on the whole planet. Mizik rasin means roots music. Boukman Eksperyan is a great example of this Vodou-influenced style. I've included a link to one of their joyous tunes at the end of this video. Also at the end, I've included a link to some compas music. There are too many great bands to mention, but I've listed a few and given you a link to one of my favorite songs by Djet-X. Listen to how they weave so many influences in their music: Haitian, Dominican, Spanish, French, Cuban, American. Nothing else I'm aware of sounds quite like this. It could only come from Haiti. Jamaica is the home of one of the world's most popular music styles, reggae. Initially colonized by the Spanish, the British claimed Jamaica in 1655. Sugar was a major export, providing the foundation for the economy and resulting in the import of much human slave labor from Africa during the 18th and 19th centuries. Jamaica achieved full independence in 1962. Tourism, along with mining, are now the staples of the economy. Unfortunately, the wealth brought by tourism has not succeeded in eliminating poverty in the urban areas, primarily Kingston. Trenchtown, made famous worldwide through the popularity of reggae artist Bob Marley, is a neighborhood of Kingston named for an open sewer that runs through the poverty-stricken area. Bob Marley is easily the most recognized figure from Jamaica, almost single-handedly establishing reggae music as an international phenomenon. He has become a national icon and a spiritual and humanitarian role model for millions of people worldwide. The audio example that follows sings of Bob Marley's life and his influence on global change.
Respect to the man called Bob Marley, international hero, reggae prophet, born 1945, never died. Gonna tell you about Bob Marley. Brother Bob Marley was a torchbearer, so I've got to carry a flame. I'm gonna hold my candle high, praising God's name. Yes, he was a torchbearer, and he lit the spark to the flame, lighting the way for all to see, so we can do the same. I and I can do the same. Woo! Yes, come on. Yes, he was a Rasta man, a Congo Bongo Naya man, coming with the vibration, spreading out across the land, coming to us from St. Etienne, way down in Jamaica. I said he was the only son of a white man and a black woman. On the streets he used to run, yeah, with Neville Livingston and Peter McIntosh. Mr. Them used to sing, you know, the ghetto with their voices ring, yeah, with the Wailers band and Rita Anderson. The legend soon began, yeah, when they said simmer down. The man, they really had the sound that really ruled the town, chanting all oppressors down. Naya Bingy shake the ground when they say Trenchtown rock. The roadblock was at 3 o'clock. Yeah. Ooh, yeah. He was the one God chosen to carry a message in this time. Every corner of the world, everyone. Though they say cancer took him, it could not erase what he left behind. The truth goes marching on. Say Brother Bobby was a torchbearer, so I got to carry a flame. I'm gonna hold my candle high and praise up Jaja's name. Yes, he was a torchbearer, and he lit the spark to the flame, lighting the way for all to see, so we could do the same. I and I could do the same. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
First impressions. Reggae has a distinctive sound that is almost immediately recognizable to anyone familiar with popular music. The tempo tends to be slower than most dance music and generally falls behind the beat rather than in front or on top of it. This creates a laid-back feeling consistent with the no-worries stereotypical attitude of the Jamaican population, where Jamaica no problem is a motto. Aural analysis. Other features are an emphasis on the upbeat, beats 2 and 4, rather than the downbeat, beats 1 and 3, as in marching band music. This upbeat, referred to as skank, is generally articulated by the thin guitar sound, while the low-range bass establishes the downbeats. The emphasis on low-range and high-range instruments leaves an empty space in the middle range for the vocalist to be heard more clearly. Reggae vocal artists are primarily valued for their lyrics. Reggae lyrics often deal with social issues, expressing discontent or frustration with the establishment and those in control of the political and economic wealth of the nation. Reggae artists often see themselves in a position to speak for oppressed peoples from Jamaica and around the world, trying to educate the general public on matters they deem important to relieving humanitarian ills. Reggae lyrics often make poignant statements regarding the heritage, oppression, and future objectives of African-descended populations in the New World. Marcus Garvey, an early leader promoting the rights of African-descended peoples in the West, is said to have prophesied the second coming of Christ, saying, "Look to Africa, where a black king shall be crowned." Rastafarians believe that this second coming occurred in the form of an Ethiopian king, Haile Selassie, in 1930. Reggae art frequently incorporates the red, gold, and green colors of the Ethiopian flag. As most reggae artists are either Rastafarians themselves or sympathetic to the religion, many people assume these are the colors of the Jamaican flag, which is actually green, gold, and black, not red. Other Rastafarian references often appear in reggae lyrics. Jah means God and is considered a shortened form of Jehovah. Dreadlocks is a hairstyle that characterizes Rastas. The dreads represent a lion's mane and are said to mark the true believers whom God will then raise up to heaven by grasping their hair. Ganja, a Hindi term for marijuana, is considered a means of heightening a person's spiritual awareness so they can more easily accept God's wisdom. Unknown to many Europeans and Americans, references to the Babylonians is actually a criticism of European and American culture, which is often viewed as oppressive and self-serving. Reggae has been incorporated into so much of popular music, its influence far surpasses the small physical size of Jamaica. I've listed some other famous reggae artists, as well as the most famous English reggae band, UB40. Reggae's predecessor, ska, a Jamaican style from the 1950s that mixed Caribbean music with American R&B, also influenced English bands in the 1970s, such as the English Beat and the Specials. By the 1990s, this music had spread to Orange County, here close to us. I'm sure many of you are fans of bands such as No Doubt and my favorite Long Beach band, Sublime. Calypso and steel band music is primarily associated with Trinidad, which is politically linked to the island of Tobago. Though Trinidad and Tobago are politically united, most musical discussions focus on Trinidad, the larger of the two islands. Initially Spanish, then French, the British claimed the islands in 1797 until Trinidad achieved independence in 1962. Many ethnic populations were imported either as slaves or indentured workers. Consequently, the island has a diverse population, primarily of African, East Indian, and Chinese descent. The United States military established a naval naval base in Trinidad during World War II to utilize its natural resources, namely oil, and to provide a southern port for U.S. warships. Pitch Lake attracts roughly 20,000 visitors annually and is regarded as a somewhat ugly tourist attraction in the Caribbean because it is associated with industrialization. Roughly 2 million visitors visit Trinidad and Tobago, most coming for the carnival season, usually in mid-February, that marks the beginning of the Lent season in the Roman Catholic Church. The French established this festival in Trinidad before the British arrival, and it has since become one of the two most popular carnival celebrations in the world, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, hosting the other. This event is also known as Mardi Gras in the United States. Let's listen to an example of Calypso music.
If a man have money today, people do not care if he have cocoa bear. If a man have money today, people do not care if he have cocoa bear. He can commit murder and get off free and live in the governor's company. But if you are poor, the people tell you sure and a dog is better than you. If you have money to buy in a store, the boss will shake your hands at the door. Call the clerk to take down everything, whiskey, cloth, herring, and diamond ring. Send them to your home on a motorbike. You can pay the bills whenever you like. And not a soul will ask you a thing. They know very well that money is king. A man with a collar and tie and waistcoat, ask the Chinaman to trust him, Accra and float. Me not trust and roll out the Chinaman. You better move on from me frying pan. You college man, me no know ABC. You want a macraggy and penny. The worm start to jump in the man belly, and he cry out, a dog is better than me. A dog can walk about and take a bone, fowl head, tail, bread, fish tail, and bone. If it's a good breed and not too wild, people will take it and mine as a child. But when a hungry man goes out to beg, there's not a bulldog behind his leg. 20 policemen will arrest him too. You see where a dog is better than you.
First impressions. Calypso ensembles sound much like modern dance bands, but with a talking vocalist whose lyrics are the primary focus for local audiences. Aural analysis. European instruments dominate the Calypso ensemble, but the witty lyricism of the Calypsonian is derived from African oral poetry traditions. The vocalist, as such, is prized for what he says over how he says it. In other words, the lyrics are valued over the quality of his or her vocal production. The content of such lyrics is poignant and playful. For example, our audio selection, performed by a classic Calypsonian, the Growling Tiger, addresses issues of poverty and homelessness, but in a satirical manner, i.e., that is, money is king. As a popular music genre, the musical accompaniment has a dance beat, nowadays derived from the engine room rhythm section of the steel band orchestras, but formerly incorporating polyrhythmic music activity and frequent use of Congo drums or other African percussion, along with the harmony of the melodic wind instruments. The melodic line is repetitive in order to make the song memorable, a typical feature of popular music. Classic calypso often has a jazz-like sound, Modern calypso is more rock-based. A tenor steel drum is often heard as a solo instrument, though not in our example. Classic calypso artists were popular in Trinidad from roughly the 1930s until the mid-1980s. Some of the more famous performers were the Growling Tiger, Lord Kitchener, Calypso Rose, and the Mighty Sparrow. These artists were known for their witty lyricism that often ridiculed political and religious leaders, as well as all social classes and even themselves. While their popularity ebbed and flowed, most found an audience for the majority of their careers. As tourism increased around carnival time, the government instituted numerous competitions to try and civilize the event. The Calypso tent thus became a proving ground for newcomers to match wits with established artists. In the late 1970s, some of the new calypso artists began to blend aspects of rock and reggae to give the music a wider appeal. As tourism continued to rise, this new style lost much of its lyrical focus on topical issues relevant to the local community, shifting instead to party themes of dancing, drinking, sex, and the carnival celebrations. Soca, in other words, soul calypso, is a style of music that drew from calypso, rock, reggae, and incorporated much of this new focus, and by the 1980s began to overshadow the traditional calypso style. The picture album covers here reflect this shift of emphasis from the calypsonian himself on the right to the primal themes of soca, that is, sex, on the left. While calypso still finds audiences in Trinidad, soca music has become the primary style associated with the carnival celebrations. You have been listening to steel band music. Cruise lines and vacation resorts frequently use steel band calypso music as background music for their island getaway promotions. The sound has become synonymous with island music from the Caribbean, no matter the associated destination. While reggae, calypso, and various Latin musics, that is salsa, also form a significant part of the Caribbean's musical identity, it is the steel drum, or pan, often pronounced pawn, that has become the musical symbol of the region. The term pan is the name used by Trinidadians for the steel drum. The engine room refers to the rhythmic percussion that drives the music. It typically has a consistent engine-like sound and may incorporate some polyrhythmic elements. The instruments found in the engine room include drum set, congas, and assorted hand percussion. Much of the music, though, is built on harmony, derived from the European tradition. Compositions are often drawn from European classical repertory, though calypsos and other popular genres are more common today, especially during the carnival celebrations. Much music is specifically written for steel drum orchestras. The development of the pan is closely associated with the history of carnival. Established by the French, carnival was celebrated by the European elite primarily at indoor masked balls. During the carnival season, however, restrictions on outdoor activities were lessened, and the non-European descended populations celebrated with the greater freedom allowed by performing music in public areas and practicing their own religious observances. The outdoor celebrations soon overshadowed the indoor activities. In part, this led to a restriction on outdoor musical activities, especially African drumming practices. Thus, drums were banned by the government. With no drums, the revelers turned to other means of making music. Tambour bamboo bands were created utilizing the natural resources of bamboo to create musical instruments by pounding the sticks on the ground to get different pitches, or striking them together as clappers. Street gangs often formed their own tambour bamboo bands and would use their instruments as weapons when they encountered a rival gang. The government therefore also banned these instruments as well. As a result, the young gang members found other junk to use as musical instruments, such as biscuit tins from a local factory and car parts, such as brake drums, as well as pots and pans and bottles. The American military established a naval port during World War II to access Trinidad's oil reserves. After the war, the U.S. military left numerous steel drums behind, which the inventive musicians used to create steel drums of various ranges. The bass pan, for instance, utilizes the entire 55-gallon drum in sets of 6 or more, while the highest range instrument has a shallow skirt and can play nearly 3 octaves using the Western tuning system. The gangs now battle with music in different competitions held throughout the year. Panorama is the biggest event, concluding the carnival celebrations. The bands practice all night in the pan yards to prepare for the competition and represent their community. At the end of this video, you will find a link to the competition where you will see how large the bands are and how elaborate the arrangements can be. The steel drum is today regarded as the world's most recent internationally successful acoustic instrument. It is increasingly popular in the United States as part of community programs and higher educational institutions. Such bands are commonly found at carnival celebrations around the world. Many Western pop artists have used it in their songs. The steel pan is a great story of the ingenuity and resourcefulness of humans in their drive to make music out of whatever materials are available. Son and salsa are some of the most important music genres emanating from Cuba. Cuba was among those islands where Christopher Columbus first landed in 1492. The Spanish occupied the island until the end of the 19th century, when the United States took control for a few years. Cuba's independence began in 1902, with a series of presidents and a rather unstable political system, culminating in the dictatorial rule of Fulgencio Batista until 1959. Throughout these years, Cuba became a haven for American excesses, especially during the Prohibition years of 1919 to 1933. Havana became a center for jazz, drinking, and organized crime, and thrived with the influx of American dollars. Batista's oppressive leadership, however, encouraged the formation of several rebel groups. In 1959, Fidel Castro successfully overthrew Batista's government and established the first communist state in the Western Hemisphere. The U.S.-backed Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961 failed to oust the leader, and the Cuban Missile Crisis brought the United States to the brink of nuclear war with the former Soviet Union. Cuba still remains partially off limits to American visitors, but has significantly opened up other international investors, making it an increasingly popular tourist destination for some travelers. Due to the prevalence of jazz in Cuba, Latin dance became all the rage in the 1940s. The thousands of Cuban refugees since Castro's reign have also encouraged the spread of Cuban music throughout the Caribbean and the United States. The fusion of Spanish musical traditions with African polyrhythms has created a variety of Afro-Cuban derived musics, the most notable being salsa, which is generally considered a derivation of the Cuban son. Afro-Cuban rhythms are now a fundamental feature of several jazz and popular styles. Let's listen to some Afro-Cuban derived salsa from the band Tolu, featuring CSUN Music Department faculty Luis Conti.
Y viene de nuevo Perico a gozar otra vez. Y qué locomotora, caballero. Quítate de la vía, Perico, que ahí viene el tren. Pero que quítate de la vía, Perico, que ahí viene el tren.
First impressions. Cuban son is the essence of much Latin popular music. It was highly influential on the development of Latin jazz, as well as the development of salsa music in the United States. Aural analysis. European wind instruments combined with polyrhythmic percussion are common to Afro-Cuban music. Key to recognizing son and salsa is the clave pattern, which in the textbook example follows a 2-3 pattern, commonly referred to as son clave or reverse clave. The pattern is strongly syncopated and follows a 4-pulse duple meter. This pattern provides the center for the other percussion instruments that create a polyrhythmic structure. Let's clap these two rhythms found on this page. I'll give you a pulse with my foot, and then we will clap it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, ready, go. Now, let's do the reverse clave rhythm. Remember not to clap on the first beat, but on the second beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, ready, go. It is this reverse clave rhythm that you will hear in our listening example. These instruments shown on this slide are common to Cuban son as well as salsa music from the United States. They are found among many other types of Afro-Cuban influenced music throughout the Americas and Caribbean. Salsa is an ideal example illustrating the blend of Euro-American emphasis on harmony with the foundation of African polyrhythm. The musics where these two systems are fairly evenly balanced are those that we generally refer to as Latin music. Latin music is generally sung in Spanish, while Caribbean music usually uses English. The term Latin music is also applied to some music in the U.S. Aside from son and salsa, there are several other Afro-Cuban derived musics, such as rumba and charanga. Latin music of the Caribbean often utilizes polyrhythms found in Santeria music. Santeria is one of the many West African derived religious traditions found in the Western Hemisphere. Yet, few outsiders are aware of this musical connection. The lyrics of much Afro-Cuban salsa can be romantic or simply escapist. Or in the hands of artists such as Ruben Blades, salsa can be used as a vehicle for social commentary about the plight of Latinos wherever they live and struggle. Ballroom dance includes a great many Afro-Cuban derived dances, including rumba, cha-cha-cha, mambo, merengue, and bolero. These modern styles bear little resemblance to the folk styles that often include sexual innuendo and a more improvisatory character. Salsa romantica is the term for a soft form of salsa that has been very popular. Reggaeton mixes salsa, reggae, hip-hop, and other styles. I've included the names of some of the many Latin pop artists who incorporate salsa into their music. This music is expected to continue to rise in popularity as the Latino population in the U.S. becomes more influential and prominent culturally. Another Latin music is merengue, associated with the Dominican Republic. The Dominican Republic shares the island of Hispaniola with Haiti, whereas the Haitian Revolution in 1804 drove out most of the French colonialists, leaving a predominantly African-descended population. The Dominicans' Spanish heritage remains a vibrant aspect of Dominican culture. The former dictator Rafael Leonidas Trujillo Molina largely succeeded in cultivating the European roots of the population while instilling a fear and distaste for the African connection that he associated with Haitian peoples. Since his rule, the Dominican Republic has gradually raised its political and economic stature within the Caribbean community. Folk merengue is comprised of three major instruments: a double-faced barrel drum, tambora, a rasp idiophone, guira, and a button box accordion. Let's give a listen. You will see some potential first impressions above. The tambora provides the fundamental rhythm, utilizing a difference in timbre between one face struck with a hand and the other struck with a stick. The guira regulates the basic tempo with improvisatory rhythms that complement the drum and melodic instruments. The accordion provides basic melody and harmony. Merengue is a dance music with a fairly quick walking tempo, typically divided into three sections: paseo, merengue, and jaleo. The opening paseo section tends to be slower, not heard on the textbook audio example, and may be in free rhythm. The merengue and jaleo sections are repeated indefinitely with the vocals organized in a call and response format. The button box accordion also performs this call and response form, using the melody to call the chords to respond. A saxophone is often included to complete the ensemble. As with many Latin genres, the name denotes not only a music, but also a dance form. Folk merengue dance is a simple sidestep where the following leg drags on the ground. The ballroom version includes exaggerated hip movements and the standard ballroom pose, with one hand on the hip and the other held out at shoulder height along with the partner. The pair then move in a circle, which is believed to derive to be derived from African circle dances, while the basic pose is obviously associated with European salon dances. The music also expresses this blend of European and African elements with vibrant percussion and the call and response form from Africa, but Western melodic instruments and its use of harmony from Europe. Merengue continues to evolve and is a hugely popular genre throughout Latin America. I've included a mega hit from the band Oro Solido on the next slide. Here are just a few links to some great music from Haiti, Trinidad, and the Dominican Republic. This is just the tip of the iceberg as far as the great traditional and popular music you can find in the Caribbean. Thanks for listening.